Routines and monotony. This is what I was supposed to be talking about last week, and then I went completely off the rails. Still talked about monotony, but it was a whole different thing. So, what I was thinking about was that for the first time in ever that I can remember, I started to feel the pain of monotony. Um, there's a Deftones line, I don't remember what song it was, but from the album Adrenaline, I believe, and the line is, "How dare you bore me?" And that's something that I felt really strongly for a long time, but also never really needed to feel that way, if that makes sense. I just always thought, like, being bored is the worst thing that could happen. It's incredibly uncomfortable, and it's not easy for me to get bored, I would say, but that maybe we'll get into that. How easy is it for me to get bored? When I have options, when I am autonomous, when I can do what I'd like to do, I don't get bored. It's if I'm really, really sick, and I'm sick for like 3 days, and when I was living alone or something like that, and I could do nothing much but like read and watch TV, then I would get bored a little bit. If I can't do anything creative, if I can't go out, it's really difficult for me to spend a whole day in the house and not leave. That's also just really hard for me mentally, emotionally, physically, but especially mentally. It just drains me to not leave the house. In saying that, I'm not a very extroverted person, but I'd like to be out. I do enjoy my home time too if I have a space that's welcoming and conducive to relaxing and lounging, and some of the places I've lived aren't very much like that. So I have other spaces where I can utilize, the studio is a great place for that, as well as being incredibly productive and creative. It's just a great space for all of that stuff. Home isn't a great space right now for either of those things, and I need to work on making it a better space for those things, being productive and relaxing, which, relaxing is productive. Getting a certain amount of rest is part of being productive. But yeah, boredom. It's not something that I really let myself or allow myself to feel, and I don't mean because I am in such amazing control of myself and all my mental capabilities that I won't get bored. It's the fact that if I can do what I want to do, if I am the one governing my time, then I just generally don't get bored, because I have so many things that I could do, so many things that I want to do, that I won't ever have enough time to do them all, because I'll think of new things I want to do before the old things are done, and I'm just always wanting to reach out into different areas to do this or do that, and whatever. So that's not really a concern of mine. However, when you start having to share time with people, that is when things get tricky for me, because I, at times, can be very hard to please, even though I don't know, I guess it's because I want to do what I want to do, and I don't believe in altruism. So if I am happy spending time with someone doing what they want to do, and I'm not bored by it, it's just simply because that happens to be something that I'd also like to do. Or if it's something that I don't care that much about, I'm happy doing it because maybe seeing them happy makes me happy. Or, but that only goes so far. And so it just depends on the person that I'm sharing time with, as to what those things are that we are sharing, and if I would get bored or suffer, I guess, in those moments. But yes, recently, a huge factor as to how this came about, and feeling the pain of monotony, as I titled it earlier, this is hugely brought on by COVID-19 stuff. Basically because I was not able to work, and because I had to be at home with a child full time. That was a tremendous shift. But even then, this is the thing. I want to talk about routines and monotony, because I love routine, but that means something different to everyone else. Just like everyone has a different line of monotony, and it's interesting how these things work together or work away from each other. Yeah, so I was kind of put into the situation where this was the thing that seemed the best to do, because I wasn't able to work anymore and had a child in my care. And it just like, hey, well, we do have routines, and some of that, includes schoolwork. However, I found that time began to be so structured because of just a new lifestyle that includes children, that within that structure, I was finding it very difficult to... I still am finding it very difficult to be productive, because I have to take someone else's needs into consideration all the time, much more so than I ever have before in my life. Because in the past, I had, if I ever lived with a partner, I lived with a partner. That was it. If I had a roommate, I have very little obligation or responsibility to them. But with a partner, I have much more obligation and responsibility. You add 2 kids to the mix, and it's a whole different game. So that's new for me. And so there's times where I need to work with the situation that I have, and I can work with that better than I have been, in order to find ways to have good routines that also encourage productivity. I've never been one... I didn't think I was one for being very spontaneous, and in fact it was a point that people have made in the past as to how we're different and whatever else, because I can't be spontaneous. And I like to be very organized. I like the idea, at least, of being very organized, and I try to organize my life in very many different manners, and I don't think it's overkill because it works for me. But the thing is that the more structured I am, the more organized I am, it's like if you know all the rules, then you can break them. So if I organize things and structure them in such a detailed way, or a way that is efficient and makes sense, when I'm talking about my time, then I know where I have time to spare, or what things I can move around to make time for things that come up last minute. If I don't have anything organized, then priorities suddenly get, moved around, and they're not in the right order, and things don't get done that should get done, and then I find my life to be very stressful when it's chaotic like that. Now, if somebody were always living in chaos, that would be their norm, so it wouldn't be chaos to them, I suppose. Maybe this is where ignorance is bliss can come in to save the day, because they wouldn't realize how much better it could be, or how much more efficient things could be, how much more they could get done with their time if they had organized things properly. These things that they, sometimes, and I've had experience with people like this, it's almost like, oh, that was an act of God. Like, they don't say those words, but that's what they mean, is like, oh, I couldn't help it. It was beyond my control. And I find that very few times is it, life screws things up all the time, or life just, has its own plans, or doesn't have plans at all that ruin your plans. But again, the more organized you are, you can do something about those interruptions. Where you can allocate time differently, and how to work around life's challenges. And if you never see any challenges by life ever, then again, ignorance is bliss, and you're just living in this space that's great mentally and emotionally for you, but you are not doing probably half of what you could be doing. And saying that probably doesn't matter, because if that person doesn't know that they could be doing a whole lot more if they had just kind of pulled themselves together, then I guess it doesn't matter to them if they don't know any different, right? So seeing it from this other perspective is the thing. So yeah, being organized allows me the freedom to be spontaneous. It allows me the freedom to take advantage of things when they come up. Because if I didn't have that at all, I guess, or on a day that maybe I was like, oh no, I didn't organize things well enough, I'll start to panic, and I'll be like, what's going, and then I'll make the wrong choice, and that choice, it'll be a domino effect, and it might screw things up for later in the week, for days later. Sometimes 10 minutes can screw something up. And just one thing leads to another, and all of a sudden there's a 10-minute window where I could have, like today, is what I'm thinking of, I had things that could have gotten done. But I made a choice when life, if we're going to call it life, created a challenge for me, and I decided to engage with that challenge rather than just leaving it for a while. It's very hard for me to ignore confrontation. So, and because I chose to engage in that confrontation, I didn't have time for other things that I needed to do. It's not because I have everything timed out to the second. It's that things were organized to a point, and then I pushed past that a little bit, and something else pushed past it. And, it seems to be that my answer to everything lately is be more organized. The more organized I am, the more disciplined I can be. That's something that I'm calling back from. Like, the more organized I am, the easier it will be to follow through with tasks, with productivity. All these things relate to discipline and getting things done. But anyway, back to the topic at hand here, monotony and organization, or, structure. I just really began to see how monotony can be so draining for me. If I am not on time, if I am not that structured, I don't feel very motivated. And if I don't feel motivated, then even when I do get time, I don't have the energy to pursue the things I need to pursue. And then there is a cycle. Because then I get down about the fact that I feel like I wasted my time. I have time right now, and I'm doing this, right? And I wish that I could do this more often in other areas, so that like technically I could record videos anywhere. I should be able to do them at home, and I still don't find as much time available to me to do them there. And I wish that I could carve out just a half an hour sometimes to do that, and I at times just feel like it's not available there for me, rather than doing it here. Because that half hour when I'm here at the studio, it's not just a half hour, it feels like. It's a whole, I don't know. It just takes a little chunk out of like the bigger block of time that I have, and it's frustrating. But monotony that I've never really felt before in my life, again, was partially me trying to adjust to the circumstances, and not being able to adjust to the circumstances in a way that leaves me happy and productive, which are the same thing for me. Being productive, can be many different things. Depends on my priorities. If being productive is having, family time, then that would be productive, and I am happy, and I would feed off that. But sometimes I need to be productive in other ways that are artistic and creative endeavors that are individual to me. Or sometimes I need to be productive just by cleaning and organizing things, or catching up on administrative stuff and emails and applying to jobs and whatever else. But I just found a certain amount of monotony with. This is the first time, I guess, that I've had a routine where monotony was a product of it. Because I'm not in control as much as, I'm not. It's just simple. I can't really say that I am, because I'm not. I'm not in control of the scenario as much as I would like to be. I don't have the freedom as much to take control as much as I'd like. And if I were afforded that opportunity, I think I could deal with this routine much better. But this routine of 4 to 5 days a week of getting up, getting some homework started, that is so much out of my control as to when it will get done, how it will get done, how much assistance will be needed of me, etc., that it's really difficult for me to be productive and give anything, my full attention. And if I don't know. There's so many inconsistencies with me that I feel like that I end up being balanced by my extremes, because I can hyper-focus on some things, and that's the only way I can get things done, sometimes by hyper-focusing on things. Other times I feel like multitasking is the way that I can be most productive, by having this many different things on the go, and sometimes that just doesn't work for me at all, and it's just it's a thing. And maybe it's because I need to change my approach and just hyper focus more. But if I'm aware of the fact that I know I'm going to be interrupted from whatever that task is, and I can't fully focus on it for more than maybe a few minutes at a time, it also provides me with a mental block, and that's what I need to work on. Is like get rid of that mental block. Just do what you can when you can, and be happy with that, and continue to use those little 5-minute chunks to the best of your ability. But I mean, I also don't know how much I can help the fact that it really derails me. I just need to get used to it and push forward and push past it and work with it. But I've never had this thing before where monotony was a thing in my life that, and again, it's just so draining. And again, part of it is like work being taken, like, I don't know, that's the thing I just wanted to explore, because like work has just, I don't know, when I was teaching full time, I had the same, like every Monday I had the same classes, every Tuesday was the same classes, but it was just never boring. I would never go to work and just be bored by the fact that like here I am again at this day with these students at this time at this school. Like it just never got boring. With subbing is a different adventure every single time, so it's hard to get bored. I mean, it's easy to get bored sometimes in a class, depending on what the class is doing or not doing. But even then, like I found time to write, I found time to read, I found time to do whatever sometimes, or I was incredibly engaged in teaching some material because sometimes I was supervising a test. What else am I going to do but read? And other times I was super hands-on and working with students, and then everything in between. So it's just, I don't know, work was never, when it comes to teaching anyway, teaching-related fields isn't something that, I never felt any monotony in the workplace like that. I've definitely had jobs before that felt that way, but I've never felt that way at home. I've never felt that way outside of a work environment. And like some work environments, that was built into the job of it being so taxing on me, because it did not require much of my mental ability. It was just my body doing, repeated motions without having to think and being on autopilot, and it drove me nuts. But never had that outside of that scenario. Even school was not monotonous. School was not that repetitive and boring or whatever. And now I just found myself in a position where I was like, holy smokes, I'm getting drained by doing nothing. And it's something I've already known, just never in this context. Again, if I don't leave the house for whatever reason, if I get a late start and things start getting whatever, like I get tripped up and stuff and don't leave quick enough, I feel very unaccomplished, and I get a feeling of almost bored. Like feeling bored is just the worst thing. If I don't have the energy to actually pursue the things on my big list of things that I need to do or want to do, if I don't have the energy, if I'm not in the right mood or the right space for it, if I'm feeling too negative and weighted down, and I feel like I can't actually do those things, that creates a horrible cycle where I feel bored because I didn't do these things that I really wanted to accomplish. But sometimes I have to be in a certain headspace or a certain emotional state in order to feel capable of pursuing some of those activities, like whether it be writing or trying to do some artwork or whatever. Like it's sometimes energy to take on a challenge. Like if I'm like, oh my goodness, I've got to like something that doesn't seem very challenging, but for me, administrative work sometimes is when it comes to like revising my resume and applying to jobs and creating a new cover letter. Like I have to. Sometimes it doesn't matter what my mood is like. I just have to do it. But there's times where just the thought of it is so draining before we even start anything. But when it comes to creative things, I mean, I can be in a negative space, but it has to be a very passionate negative space usually. If I'm in a very neutrally melancholy, I don't know, neutral's not a good place for me. Being on hold is not a good place for me. And that is a negative place for me, but it's not the same type of passionate negativity or pessimism or whatever that I can have if I'm angry. This isn't anger. This is, beyond that. This is, times where, boredom. Like that's, it's, or the feeling on hold, or like I just am not in enough control. And again, some of that is just me. I have a certain amount of ability to control things, and other things I don't. I still need to figure out that balance. But that's the thing. I don't think organization is the enemy of monotony. I don't think that. Um, Wait, that's not what I meant to say. I don't think organization, and I don't think repetition and monotony and boredom are the product of deep organization. I think that they can those two worlds for me they can be opposing figures. I think that their organization and detail to structure and things like that will help me combat monotony, and I just need to be more strict about what I'm doing. For some reason, that seems to be the solution, where deeply organizing things will give me the right kind of routine, because it's not necessarily the same thing every time. The routine, if it comes to working out or something, it kind of will be like, hey, Monday I do this, Tuesday I do this, Wednesday this, Thursday this, Friday that, blah 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 blah. But after that little chunk of time, it's forcing myself into a position to start the day in a good way, because that I know is something that will help me with the rest of my day. Either be more patient, to feel like I accomplished something, knowing that my physical, mental, and emotional states are better off. Just like having that knowledge will help me throughout the day, make me feel good as a whole. So that type of thing. Why would I ever? That's not something that I should skip. That's a routine that I should be very strict with. And after that, there's chunks of time that you can make as a routine to build in a chunk of time to do a thing, but it doesn't even have to be a specific thing. It could be like, this is a chunk of time to do a list of 5 to 10 different things that could fit in that chunk of time. You just need to actually be doing one of them. Again, the problem with me is that I tend to think in very big chunks, and if I have a really big chunk of time, then I know I can get something done with it. I have a much smaller chunk of time, I feel like, man, I can't get anything done, so I just do not much at all. And that's a mind state and a habit that I really need to get out of. If I only have a 2-hour chunk of time, and 2 hours is a lot of time to do stuff. But I feel like it's not, so I end up doing all these little tiny tasks that are nothing that I can point to and say, I did something good today. Like, it's like, hey, I'm just going to go on my phone, I'll post a picture, and I'll, do this, and I'll catch up with that, and I'll go on. It's just me piddling around on social media a whole bunch, not actually producing anything, and not learning anything, and just I don't know, there's little tasks here and there that have to be done, but I don't know. Anyway, I just really think that, once again, I'm finding the solution for me to combat this horrible monotony that sometimes I'm feeling that's draining me so much, is to just double down on organizing myself and being strict with scheduling. And again, it's not to the minute stuff. It's just do this thing. Within this block of time, just do that thing. And then there's a whole list of things that open up that you could do with these other blocks of time. And then the day opens up a little bit here. And then you're back into being organized during this time. And then that time. And I don't know. The more productive I am, the more productive I am. The more I feed off my own energy, the more that I motivate myself. But if I get into a rut where I'm not productive, it builds on itself too, and it builds on itself in the wrong way. It builds on the fact that I'm feeling crappy, and when I'm feeling crappy, I don't feel motivated, and when I'm not motivated, I feel crappy, and then it just goes and goes and goes and goes. I'm having a lot of the same problems over and over again because I'm not fixing it quick enough. Ultimately, these things come down to me and my ability, strength, will, determination to be more disciplined. See you on another time.